These are the solutions to the summer 2020 grammar exam. Question 1a, solve 3x squared plus 5x minus 13 and give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So the clue to use the quadratic formula. If you don't know it off by heart, you should at this stage. B squared minus 4ac, you'll go to the tables and get it. So a is equal to 3, b is equal to 5, and c is equal to minus 13. So minus 5 plus or minus the square root of, you can put minus 5 to be squared in if you want, but it's the same as 5 squared, minus 4 by a by c, and that's all divided by twice a. So minus 5 plus or minus the square root of 25, and 12 13s are 156, so 25 and 156 is 181 divided by 6. So type these both into your calculator, and the answers that you should come up with are x is equal to 1.41 and minus 3.08. Now there's 2 marks for any correct work in all of these questions, and 5 for full if you get both correct. So easy enough to grade yourself. All of these questions, apart from one of them, are worth 5 marks. So question B of part 1, multiply out and simplify. X plus 10 to be squared, which leads into part 3. So it's x squared. You could write out the brackets twice if you want, but as higher level third year students, you should be able to see that this gives 10x twice, which is 20x plus 100. And again, there's 5 marks, 2 for some part of it correct, 5 for fully correct. Part C has a relationship with B. You're asked to show that the following is divisible by 5, x plus 10 to be squared, which you already have, and then minus x minus 10 to be squared. So be careful with this minus here in front of the bracket. So we're going to have x squared plus 20x plus 100 minus what's inside the bracket, which is x squared minus 20x plus 100. So I'm going to put the minus version of all of these underneath here. So we're going to have a minus x squared, and I'm going to combine the 2 lines. So that's going to cancel. I'm going to have plus 20x, and I'm going to have the plus becoming a minus 100. So you can see here we're going to end up with 40x, which is equal to 5 times 8x. So therefore divisible by 5. And again, 2 marks for attempting it and getting some part right, and 5 marks for fully correct. So in all of these questions, you should be getting a minimum of 40% with your 2 out of 5. Question 2 starts with 3 factorizations, all worth 5, and then it goes on to drawing a function which is worth 10. So factorizing this, normally when we have 2 terms, it's the difference of 2 squares. So if we divide by 2, we'll get the difference of 2 squares inside the bracket. So we're going to get 2 times 2x minus 5y by 2x plus 5y. So again, 2 or 5 for all of these. This one here, I'm going to pair normally the first and the second, but I'm going to compare the first and the last here. I can see there's a 3n in both of these. So 3n is going to leave me 2k to get 6kn, and it's going to leave me minus m to get minus 3mn. The second bracket has to be the same, so write it down and we'll match it off. How am I going to get minus 2k squared here? I'm going to have to put a minus k in front, and then minus k by minus m is your plus km. So combining the terms, we're going to get 3n minus k, and we're going to get 2k minus m. Again, 2 and 5. This one here, plus sign here, minus sign here, sorry, minus sign in the middle, plus sign at the end, 2 minuses. And there's very few options here. It has to be 2x times x because 2 is prime. The only way to get 1 is 1 by 1, and you know there are 2 minuses. You can do that sum really quickly. 2 and 5, so 15 so far in question 2. C part 2, which is worth 10 marks, and it's 3, 5, 7 or 10. They're the only grades you can get. We're asked to draw the function from the previous part. You might have identified it was from the previous part. So if we solve this, x is equal to, change the sign, 1 over 2, and x is equal to 1. They're the points where it crosses the x-axis, because this will be equal to 0. But we're asked to show our workings here. So we have our domain. So let's just write down our x values. We have minus 1 up to 2. So minus 1, 0, 1, and 2. We have 2x squared. We have minus 3x. And we have our constant of plus 1. And combining these middle three will give us our y value and will give us 4 points to put on our axes. So there's my x-axis. And we're going from -1 to 2, so I need a little bit more room on the right. There's my y-axis. So 2 by -1 squared is going to just give me 2. 2 by 0 squared is 0. 2 by 1 squared again is 2. And 2 by 2 squared is 8. -3 by -1 is +3. -3 by 0 is 0. -3 by 1 is -3, and -3 by 2 is -6, and the constant doesn't change. So we're going to combine these three numbers, 2, 3, and 1. It's going to give me 6. Then we get a 1. Then we get a 0. That's that 1, 0 from up here. And then we get 9 minus 6, which is 3. So if you jot your points down, -1, 6, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 2, 3. So I have to go to 6 on the y-axis. And I got to go from -1, 1, 2, 3 on the x-axis. Got to go to 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You'll have used the lines on your copies. And it doesn't come below the x-axis too much if we use our leave insert knowledge. Multiply this 2 by this 2. So we're going to get 4x. You don't have to do this at junior cert, but 4x, and multiplying this 1 by this -3. This is differentiation. We're going to get -3. If we let that equal 0, we'll get the lowest point is 4x equals to 3, or the minimum point of this graph. So x is equal to 3 over 4 at the minimum point. So the minimum point is going to be along this line somewhere here. And if you want to find out how low it goes down, put 3 over 4 into this equation. And the answer you'll come up with is, you get y is equal to -1 over 8. So it doesn't come down that far below the x-axis. So really kind of to there. So I'll change the color and graph this. It's only a sketch for you guys. You didn't need to do this bit here, but it's just so I can graph it semi-accurately. So -1, 6, 0, 1. It's coming through the x-axis at 1, 0. And then at 2, it's going back up to 3. So if we complete the curvy part first, it's coming down. And we can see here it also goes through the x-axis at a half. So it's going to go through the x-axis at here. We take that point from previous. So it's going to just come below slightly, then go back up. So this is the graph of function. So 3, 5, 7, 10. 3 if you just have 2 of these correct. 5 if you have all 4 points correct. 7 if you got 3 of the points out of the 4 correct on the graph, and 10 out of 10 for the whole thing. Question 3 is a patterns question. Show the next 3 terms. Well, let's have a look at the differences here. We have a jump of 5 and we have a jump of 7. So for the second difference to be the same, you're told it's quadratic. This jump would have to be 9. This jump would have to be 11. And this jump would have to be 13. So you see 8 and 7 is 15. So 15 and 9 is going to give me 24. 24 and 11 is going to give me 35. And 35 and 13 is going to give me 48. So 5 marks, 2 if you got 2 of them correct for part A. Then formula for the nth term is equal to an squared plus bn plus c. You should know this for your quadratic. So the second difference, which is 2, 2a is equal to the second difference. Another bit of knowledge required here. So a is equal to 1. So we can just say that this pattern is n squared plus bn plus c. So what's term 1? Term 1 is equal to 3. So that's right. And that's n has become 1. And the whole thing is equal to 3. So we're going to get 1 squared plus b times 1, which is 1b, plus c is equal to 3. So always with these questions, you're going to get b plus c in the first equation and 2b plus c in the second. So b plus c here has to equal to 2 if you bring the 1 across. Term 2 is equal to 8. So we're putting 2 in for n. So we're getting n squared, which is 4, plus b times 2, which is 2b plus c, is equal to 8. So 2b plus c is equal to 4. Multiplying this equation by -1, or just changing the signs, is going to give me minus b minus c is equal to -2. So we're going to get b is equal to 2. And there we can see here from this equation, c would have to be equal to 0. So my Tn is an squared, so we got 1 for A, so n squared, and we got 2 for B, plus 2n, and that's Tn. Now, the third part, and they're again 2 and 5, so 2 for any correct information, 5 for all of the correct information. So it's a pretty generous marking scheme at Junior Cert and at Leaving Cert. If you put in a half decent effort, you should get 2 out of 5, which is 40% minimum. Show 195 is a term. Well, we could just estimate here. If we put 12 in, we're going to get 12 squared plus 2 12s are 24. 144 plus 24 is equal to 168. So that's not it. So we're jumping up. You can see that 10 won't work. 10 is 120. Term 13 is the answer here. You're going to get 13 squared plus 2 13s, which are 26. 169 plus 26 is in fact 195. So you can say that's the work done for part C, or you could say n squared plus 2n would have to be equal to 195. So this is a factorization question. N squared plus 2n minus 195 is equal to 0. I'd imagine most of you did this trial and error method. You'll get there really quickly. Factorizing this, well, I can see 5 divides in, so it's 5 by 40 will be 200, so 5 by 39. Now, the numbers need to be 2 apart to give me a 2. So I can see that if I make that a 13, I've divided by 3, so multiply the 5 by 3 to get 15, and there's 2 between 15 and 13. So this factorizes to be n plus 15 by n minus 13 to give me the plus 2n in the middle. So n is either equal to minus 15, which can't be a minus number in patterns, or n is equal to 13, which is what we got over here. So 195 is a term. And again, 2 or 5. Question 4, trigonometry. You're given this diagram. This is a pylon along here. And we're going to be looking for the height of it in a minute. Part A, we're just asked to find angle A. And you can see here we have a little triangle. Always take it outside the diagram. We have a 5 on the bottom. And we have a 1.55. This is the height of John, who's standing there. So you can see the two straight sides are going to be tan. So the tan of A is equal to O over A, 1.55 over 5. So the inverse tan of 1.55 over 5 gives me the angle. And we're asked for to correct to the nearest degree. It comes out on my calculator at 17.22 degrees. So correct to the nearest degree is 17 degrees. The height of the mast. Okay, there's two ways to do the height of the mast. We can do, firstly we could do it, take the triangle out. We have our angle 17. Now I'm going to leave it at 17.22 because I think it does change the answer here if we're going correct to one decimal place. We've 23 on the bottom and we're looking for x. So again, it's tan. The tan of 17.22 is equal to O x over the bottom, which is 23. So 23 by the tan of 17.22 is equal to the height of the mast. And 17 tan 23 tan 17.22 on my calculator is giving me 7.1 meters. We could also identify here two similar triangles. If you wanted to do it that way, we have the same angle. This angle A is the same in both the triangles. We have a 5 and a 1.55, and we have a right angle. And we have my bigger triangle with my right angle and this same angle in the corner here, and I have 23 on the bottom, and I'm looking for the height of the mast, x. So if I start with my x, I have x over the similar side in the other triangle is 1.55. That's equal to the other side we have is 23 over the other side in the other triangle, which is the same as it, is 5. So 23 by 1.55 is equal to 5 times x. So you could just write x here and divide by 5. And that's also going to give you x equal to 7.1 meters. So there was 5 marks for that question as well. Now there's 10 for the next one. John and his friends want to know as they move towards the mast. So they're going in this direction here. Let's go back up. So he's standing here. Now if he goes in this direction, the question is asking you, the angle of elevation will double. One of the friends believed that if the angle of elevation is doubled, the horizontal distance of the base will be halved. Well, at this point, he's 18 meters away from the mast, and A is 17 degrees. So let's have a look at that. If the angle is doubled, it's going up to 34. The height of the mast is still 7.1. So is this distance halved? Is this 18 going to become 9? Let's have a look. Again, we're dealing with tan. The tan of 34 is equal to 7.1 over x. So x is equal to 7.1 divided by the tan of 34. And if we type that into a calculator, we're going to get 10.52. So no is the answer. It doesn't, because we were at 18. 9 would have been the answer if there was a relationship between the distance and the angle. So 10 marks for this. A kind of tricky enough question. You need to create a diagram and have a little bit of extra knowledge just about what the question is asking you. So 10 marks for that. So either 0, 3, 5, 7, or 10, depending on how much information you gave that was correct. One small piece of information would have been a diagram of some sort. 5 marks for 2 correct pieces of information. 7 marks if you just made a small error somewhere in the question, and 10 if you got it fully correct. Question 5, you're given these 3 points. You're to write them down. So just 3 marks for this, 1 for each correct. A is 0 minus 3. The mistake that people might make is write minus 3, 0. B is 4, 1. And C is, on the diagram, minus 3, 4. The midpoint of AB, so if you just write them down, add them together and divide by 2, we'll get the midpoint. And we've done this thousands of times. 4 minus 2 is the adding part. The dividing by 2 part is going to give you 2 minus 1 for the midpoint, which they call M in a lot of these questions. But it's a big M, small m is slope. So let's join A to B. Where was the midpoint? 2 minus 1, which is this point here. So my diagram is fairly close. It looks pretty accurate to me. Okay, the equation of AB, y minus y1, is equal to m times x minus x1. So we can use either of the points. Let's use 0 minus 3 because I love using zeros. It's less work. So we need our little m. So what's the slope of this line here, A to B? Slope of this line. Well, it's positive. We can see it's rising. So when we know the slope, when we know whether it's positive or negative, we can just say it's the change in y. The change in y from minus 3 to 1, that's a change of 4. And the change in x, you can see from 0 to 4 is also 4. So the slope is 1. So we have y minus minus 3, which you're going to write as plus 3, is equal to 1 times x minus 0. So y plus 3 is equal to x. So bringing the two things across, we get x minus y minus 3 is equal to 0. So 5 marks for the midpoint. 5. Everyone should have got that. And 5 marks for the equation. And as I said to you in class, the equation can be written in any form. It doesn't have to be written in this form unless it's asked for in this form. So any type, once the numbers are right and you have the x and y, you have 5 marks out of 5. Another coordinate geometry question, question 6. The equation of the line L we're given here is 3x minus y minus 1. Find where it cuts the axes. So we have an x being 0 and a y being 0. So if x is 0, we're just left with this part, which is minus y minus 1. So just bring the y to the right and you'll see it'll be positive. So y equals minus 1 when x is 0. And if y is equal to 0, we're just left with 3x minus 1 equals 0. 3x equals 1. You can probably do this in your head. X is equal to 1 over 3. Part B, again 2 and 5 for all of these, apart from the ones where there was 1 mark for each of the points in the last question, and there's 12 marks for the final question where there were 6 lines to match. So the length of the 2 points in A, the length between them. So if you guys have practiced this a lot, it's just the change in x to be squared, which is 1 over 3 squared, and the change in y to be squared, which is 1 squared. Or you can use the formula, but it's easier to do it this way. So that's the square root of 1 over 9 plus 1, which is equal to the square root of 10 over 9. And this question, you get full marks for this, 10 over 9, square root of 10 over 9. Or if you used your calculator to simplify that, you're going to get 1.05. Part C, the slope of L. When we have this line L, so let's just write it in the form y is equal to mx plus c. So just bring the y to the right, make it positive, and we have 3x minus 1 on the other side. So m here is equal to 3. So we need the perpendicular slope in the next line. The perpendicular m, turn this upside down and change the sign, is minus 1 over 3. So now I have my m is minus 1 over 3. I have my point. So again, y minus y1, m times x minus x1. Y minus 2 is equal to minus 1 over 3 by x minus minus 3. so x plus 3. So 3y minus 6 is equal to minus x minus 3. So bringing both of these to the right, we're going to get x plus 3y. Minus 6 plus 3 is minus 3 is equal to the 0. And again, it's a 2 or a 5 mark question. 2 for some part right, 5 for it all correct. Question 7 is 12 marks, so you're going to get 2 for each that you get correct, matching the graphs to these equations underneath here. So any of these questions that you have to match graphs, the key is just get the slopes. So let's just identify the negative slopes here. A is definitely negative, it's coming down. So is C, and so is F. And then you can see the other 3 are positive. So let's look at the negative ones first. So it's the change in y over the change in x. If you want to draw a right angle triangle, you can to identify it. The change in y here you can see is 1, and the change in x is 2. So negative 1 over 2. For C, we have a 1 and an 8, so it's negative 1 over 8. And for F, it's going to be a negative 3 over 6, which again is a negative 1 over 2. So negative 3 over 6 is the same thing. Okay, so for the positive ones, we have, well, this has to be a 1, 4 and 4. This one here is a funny one, 1 over a half. Now, if we divide how many halves are in 1, there's 2 halves in 1, so that's a slope of 2. So it's climbing more than it's running. And this one here, it's the change in y is 2, and the change of x is 6, which is 1 over 3. So we have 6 slopes. Now just let's get the slopes of these lines. So we always want them in the form y equals mx plus c to see the slope. Now you should be able to just do this manually. I'm going to have to divide. There's a 1 here and I'm dividing by 3. The slope here is 1 over 3. The slope here is 1. The slope here is 2. The slope here, we're going to bring x across. So we're going to have 8y equals minus x. The constant doesn't matter. So it's going to be minus 1 over 8 for this one. This one we're going to have 2y equals minus x. So minus 1 over 2. We divide by 2. And actually you can see here, this one is the same. So this is negative 1 over 2 as well. Okay, which one has a slope of 1 over 3? E has a slope of 1 over 3. Slope of 1 is B. A slope of 2 is D here. A slope of negative 1 over 8 is C up here. C. And the 2 slopes of a half. So now we just have to separate these two. Have we got 2 slopes of negative a half? We have F and we have A. So let's look at F and A and just get the x and y intercepts. So we start with this one. When x is 0, 2y will be equal to 6, 0, 3. And when y is 0, x will be equal to 6. So which one is that? You should see that's this one here, isn't it? That's F, 0, 3, and 6, 0. So this one is F, which leaves the last one as A. So the order of these, E, B, D, E, B, D, C, F, and A, all worth 2. 6 by 2 is 12. The total marks is 125. Add up your total, divide by 125, times 100. And then you have your percentage.